The first photograph shows a black-hulled schooner shouldering into a gray sea, her bow throwing white water. The yacht is old, the kind built when decks were teak and frames were oak. Her name is Nina. In late May 2013, she cleared the customs dock at Opua, New Zealand, bound for Newcastle, Australia. The run across the Tasman is a coin toss, brilliant reaches followed by weather that turns on a hinge. The crew knew it. So did the people waving from shore. Nina had history. She was a 1928 American racing schooner that had crossed oceans before most of her crew were born. Her skipper, an experienced Gulf Coast captain, had spent years maintaining the boat with his wife, who served as first mate. A young deckhand who could hand steer by feel had signed on for the passage. An engineering professor with a lifetime at sea brought a satellite phone and a habit of keeping calm when systems misbehaved. 2 more sailors rounded out the team. 7 people, seasoned and stubborn enough to take the old boat home for a refit. They left on May 29th with a forecast calling for routine westerlies and Tasman chop. For the first days, the pattern held. Friends received cheerful notes about steady progress and the way Nina hummed when the wind lay just aft of the beam. Then the barometer dropped. A developing low spun down the Tasman like a saw blade. On June 3rd, a marine forecaster in New Zealand, an old friend to countless yachties, advised Nina by text to alter course north to keep clear of the worst of it. The reply came June 4th. Sails damaged, conditions severe, crew wet and cold, attempting to heave to and ride it out. The last confirmed contact was shortly after noon on June 4th. The message read like a checklist. Storm sails shredded, boat taking water but pumps holding, engine available, aiming for a safer quadrant. It was the sort sailors send when there is still margin and still work to do. After that, silence. At first, no one panicked. Sat phones drop calls, the Tasman swallows signals and throws them back hours later. But as days ticked by with no position report, no ping, no voice on HF, families began stacking notes and timelines on kitchen tables. On June 8th, a text arrived on a relative's phone, short, oddly phrased. Another came to a friend on the 10th. They read like queued messages released after a satellite outage, yet the times were new and the storm had already passed. If delayed, they proved little. If fresh, Nina was still alive and struggling. The difference would shape the search to come. By mid-June, Rescue Coordination Center New Zealand ran models. If Nina had hove to and drifted north, the East Australian current could carry her hundreds of miles. If she had lost her rig, she might be under bare poles, engine idling to keep the bow up. If the pumps failed, the crew could be in a raft moving 2 knots with wind and sea. Each if drew a new swath on a map that grew by the hour. The formal search started June 25th. Orion aircraft flew ladder patterns over blue water that repeated itself like wallpaper. Merchant ships were alerted. Satellites were tasked to look for a dark object big enough to be a hull. A cube of ocean the size of a country was combed and combed again. Nothing. No oil sheen, no plank of bright work, no orange raft, no strobe at night. A fishing boat reported timber. It proved a crate lid. The sea gave back no answers. Families in New Zealand and the States worked phones in shifts. The professor's colleagues scraped old email headers for GPS crumbs. A nonprofit known for finding the unfound reran drift models with daily wind fields. One scenario put a survivable raft near Norfolk Island. Another carried it into the Coral Sea, where the fetch is long and waves unforgiving. The branches ran out of map. There were reasons to hope. Nina was strongly built. Even disabled, she might float long enough for rescue if seams held. The crew's skill set stacked well. Navigation from dead reckoning and a handheld GPS, a ham operator's ear for weak voices, mechanical know-how to keep a pump running when filters clog. There were reasons to fear. A knockdown in a breaking sea can stove a window or sweep a person overboard. A fouled intake can starve the engine when you need it. A mast failure can peel a deck like a can lid. In the second week, more texts surfaced, time-stamped days after the last confirmed message. Some matched June 4th weather, suggesting late delivery. Others mentioned headings that didn't align with advice. Families and officials read and reread until the lines blurred. If real time, the crew had been alive 6 days longer than anyone knew. If not, they were ghosts of a moment already past. On July 4th, the official search was suspended. The number that hurts most closed the release. Square miles searched, hours flown, vessels diverted. The words were careful and left families staring at walls. Some shifted to private efforts. Pilots flew on their own nickel. A satellite company donated higher resolution passes. People looked until they ran out of money, then looked again. They found sea and sky and the line between, and nothing else. What likely happened is told in pieces. A Tasman low throws 40-foot seas with short periods that make a boat fall off one crest before the next. If Nina's trysail blew out, she was left with too much sail or not enough, forced to run under bare poles or ride beam to in a pattern that hammers ribs and crew. A boarding sea could have torn away deck gear or stove the doghouse. A lurch at the wrong angle could sweep a person through the lifelines. A hull that old can spring planks if she slams just right. They would fight for her, pump, rig a spare, set a drogue, call again, try for dawn. But there is another possibility written between those stray texts. Perhaps Nina survived the blow and drifted north, the crew nursing systems by hand, rationing batteries, tapping out short messages when the sky cleared. Perhaps they saw lights they couldn't catch and squalls that tore away what they'd repaired. Perhaps a second front finished what the first began. The Tasman keeps stories that never reach shore. Years passed. Charts folded into boxes. Families kept birthdays, told stories, used the word when less often. Occasionally, a fisherman netted old timber or a beachcomber found a bit of teak, and the phone rang again. None matched. No EPIRB ever lit. No raft washed ashore with a serial number to trace. No beacon spoke. The sea stayed quiet. What remains is the last certain image, a slender schooner leaving the Bay of Islands, bow high, crew in foul weather gear learning again how a wooden deck flexes underfoot. Somewhere between Opua and the Hunter Coast, the weather turned and the old ways were not enough. Whether they died that day or later, whether their final words rode a satellite glitch into the wrong week, the outcome is the same. Nina vanished into the Tasman and did not come back. Stand on the Newcastle breakwater and look east on a hard-blowing day. The horizon is a single blade. Ships pass, lights low and regular, and you can almost imagine a black hull far off the starboard bow, a raked mast carrying a shape from another era, 7 figures moving in practiced rhythm. If the wind drops, the sea keeps rolling as if nothing happened there at all. That is where they were headed. That is where the messages pointed before they stopped. Thank you for listening to the Sunken Ledger. Subscribe for more true stories from the depths.